Hello and welcome to my next video exploring Macbeth quotations. Now what I'm looking at through here and through the next set of videos that I'm intending to work on shouldn't be there to freak you out, to worry you. It's just some quotations with some ideas, and take from them what you will. Take from them what you can, and hopefully it might inspire you to have some other original thoughts, or it will just help support you with ideas for what you can write in your exam for Macbeth. So I want to explore the idea of Shakespeare's use of animal imagery. And this is a really interesting way to plot the changes in Macbeth and his character as he moves through the play. There is an awful lot of references to animal imagery throughout his play. Shakespeare uses animals as a source of imagery so that all audiences, predominantly those of his day obviously, but also audiences today too, can have a clear understanding of what Shakespeare was trying to suggest about a particular characteristic of an individual through the use of animals. We all have associations with animals, and those associations help to crystallize our understanding of a character. So we'll start by looking at the idea of Macbeth as the lion, the serpent, and the cat. So specifically Macbeth. He is referred to as a lion, as a serpent, and a cat. And these are effective quotation choices to plot the changes in Macbeth's character. So as the lion, Macbeth symbolises strength, courage, and leadership, and he is called a lion at the beginning of the play. This particular symbol is really clear for everybody as a means of understanding how Shakespeare wants us to view Macbeth at the beginning of the play. And absolutely crucial is that we remember that Macbeth is a construct of Shakespeare, and the best results will be achieved by students who really hold on to that fact. Name dropping Shakespeare throughout your essay is really important, because that recognises that you are showing that you understand this is a creation by an author. Macbeth's not a real person in this context. He is a character in a play, and name dropping Shakespeare allows us to remember that. So the serpent. When Macbeth is told to be the serpent by Lady Macbeth, look like the innocent flower but be the serpent under it, being a very well-known quotation, this could infer that Macbeth is taking on a new role. Snakes shed their skin, which can be symbolic of rebirth. As a serpent, Macbeth sheds the role of loyal subject and carves out a new role for himself. He becomes reborn as king after the act of regicide. So here the serpent imagery is perhaps slightly more unusual. I'll explore the biblical references in a minute, but this particular example of the idea of a snake shedding its skin and rebirth does allow us to explore how Macbeth does change the way he presents himself to us as an audience, and that we can see these very different characters of him. At the beginning of the play, Macbeth is a brave, noble, honourable soldier fighting for king and country. But he then changes, and the symbolism of this change could be the snake shedding the skin. He changes. He is allowed to be manipulated by his wife, and through this manipulation, he sheds that skin of loyal soldier subject and takes on a more dangerous character when he becomes a murderer. So from the biblical symbolism, the serpent or snake represents a trickster and a being that is cunning in deception. So this goes back to the original sin in the Garden of Eden. The audience of the day would be very familiar with the negative connotations linked to snakes from their religious teachings. Shakespeare's England was a religious country, and everybody would be familiar with the symbolism of snakes representing the devil and their role of being deliverers of evil. So the evil connotations, the negative connotations of snakes, serpents, was a tool Shakespeare used to show the change in Macbeth's character. Lady Macbeth talking about the snake, the serpent, also helps us recognise just how evil her intentions are. Be the serpent. So look innocent. This obviously links also to that theme of transparency and deception, and actually understanding that we need to recognise the changes in characters. This natural imagery, this image of animals, it links to other references to nature and the natural world. And this in turn can also link to the idea of the natural order and link to kingship and the divine right of kings. There are lots of different connections that can come out of the serpent. And for anybody studying the text for your 19th century literature choice of Jekyll and Hyde, can also make these connections and connotations with the way that Stevenson chooses to describe the character of Hyde when he first shows himself to us through the narrative of Enfield to Utterson with the story of the door. So that connection is important. I have asked my students to start to think about how some of the images used throughout their texts can be revised in collaboration, can be revised together. If there is a snake symbolism in the text that you are looking at, then going back to this Garden of Eden original sin idea is incredibly useful for all texts. So if you are studying Lord of the Flies, for example, there are references, and this interlinking idea of revision is quite useful for you to start thinking about in preparation for your exams that are coming up. So the cat reference. This comes from a speech in Act 1, Scene 7, when Lady Macbeth challenges Macbeth's reluctance to go ahead with the murder of King Duncan. She starts with, "Was the hope drunk wherein you dressed yourself?" And in this speech, she mentions the poor cat. This links back to an old saying that a cat would eat fish but not get its feet wet. The message being here, if you want the best things in life, you must be prepared to take them for yourself. By alluding to this poor cat, Lady Macbeth reminds her husband that if he does not act, he will never fulfill his ambition to be king. And this is a beautiful link, I feel, from the lion, the great cat, the king of the beasts, the image that he is presented to us at the beginning. And now he is just a cat, a much smaller version. And this belittling of Macbeth through this choice of language that Shakespeare shows, this belittling from lion to cat, is incredibly interesting for us as observers of and explorers of and analysers of literature. Shakespeare's incredibly clever with this connection, and we can see the belittling of Macbeth from Lady Macbeth through this imagery. And now, finally, a reference not to Macbeth himself, but to his wife. A further development of animal imagery. In this particular quotation, "Be innocent of the knowledge, dearest Chuck," we have a chicken reference, Chuck. Dearest Chuck is a term of endearment. So through this quotation, Shakespeare shows Macbeth taking back control in his marriage, in the relationship with Lady Macbeth. The Macbeth's relationship has been a battle for power throughout the play and control throughout the play. Lady Macbeth appears to be the more dominant force in this relationship from the outset, but after the murder of Duncan, Macbeth begins to take back control. He begins this power shift through his change to the plan after the death of Duncan. He kills the guards. He then clearly takes control as he leaves Lady Macbeth out of the plans to kill Banquo. Using this term of endearment, dearest Chuck, does show care and affection for his wife, but we could also infer that Shakespeare shows Macbeth taking back control. The noun Chuck suggests chicken or little chick, and this strikingly contrasts to the lion or cat imagery that has been used to describe the man in this relationship. He was the lion and then the cat, but now arguably he is dominant over a bird, as cats would be. So this change and shift in animal imagery is successful in showing that change in their relationship. It's really interesting to plot the use of animals throughout. There are obviously other references that many of you will have picked out. We have bats and beetles, black animals or insect beings, and it's important to see the relevance and reference of those. So as part of your revision, you can explore the use of animals and the animalistic imagery that Shakespeare chooses to use and the messages that those particular animals do deliver to us as an audience. Thank you. If you do have any questions, any points to make, then please do feel free to get in touch via the YouTube channel.